Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today we're going to be talking about my updated Dark Knight Succession build. So when the nerfs happened and the changes a couple of weeks ago, I've been doing a lot of testing, grinding different spots, doing a little bit of PvP with my guildies and then murking node wars and everything. So I wanted to give an update on the Succession build that I use and what I have changed since the last time and what I think is important and why. So yeah, first of all, one thing I noticed as of last week is for all of you who are going for Kerazod, you can actually get these now, like more or less the orders are, you can put an order on and get it like the same day compared to before. Yesterday was Saturday and the reset happened, and yeah, you can actually get them now, which is awesome. So with that said, I want to talk about, the different things that I use for Succession, add-ons, and everything. So where do I start? I guess we'll start with the Reforge Crystals, or whatever they're called. Simply because you use a little bit of a different setup depending on your gear and, if you're playing Succession or Awakening. So before, what I had was the all DR crystals in here. I don't think those are bad at all, but I think if you're playing Succession, crit rate is actually more important now. So, like, if you're playing Awakening and you use the DR ones, it's probably still fine. But it also depends. Like, are you hard cap DP with full Tet, Fallen God and everything? If not, depends on what you're doing. So a lot of these are changeable, but let's talk about it. So for both of them, both Main Hand and Awakening, I use double back attack just because that just across the board is better than all the other CCs like down and air. For PvE, it's situational, but back attack is just, it works for everything. Crit rate, always good. More damage, always good. Black Spirit recovery, I think those are the universal standard. Doesn't even matter what class you play. And the thing we changed, so is crit rate, and we'll talk about that in a second when we talk about add-ons and everything. So yeah, that's one of the big changes I made. Luckily, at least here on the NA server, where is it? Reforge Crystals, you can actually buy everything nowadays, and even the important ones like all AP, back attack, even to all DR and stuff. All of these are almost min price, so chances are, if you want to swap them out and try different ones, they're all min price, and it's only going to get better, so I assume on all servers it's probably the same. So, why do we have crit rate on our weapons? It's because now, well, I guess this is not even a new change. It happened a couple years ago, that not all Dark Knight skills are like 100%. So how do we figure this out? First of all, we look at this thingy over here in your stats. You see your crit rate, you see this number? You want this to be maxed out, so that's plus 18%. And then, with that said, let's say we have another 18% and then plus another 10 or 5 depending on how many you have. That's 28% total. And then we have add-ons. So let's say you have 27% or 28. We have crit rate on 2 of these add-ons. I think you could change the slanted balance for like more DR or something. If you feel like you're not surviving or your DR is low and your gear is not at max yet, you could probably put DR on here, because this one, if you use your Magnus Blooming skill, it's probably good enough. And most skills, at the very minimum, have 50%. So our goal is to get as close to, if not 100% crit rate on everything. So the important skills we're looking at that are not 100 by default is Wheel of Fortune. This is probably one of your biggest skills you're going to have. That one's a 50%. And then with all the buffs and everything, assuming you're grinding and whatever, even PvP, you want that crit rate to be as high as possible. Other skills in Succession that you use a lot are Ravage, Rake, and the Flow. And that one is not 100, that's at 60. So you need a extra crystal or something in there to keep it up at 100% uptime. And depending on how well you rotate your skills over here, in theory, this Blooming Black Rose is on 8-second cooldown, and the crit rate lasts for 12, so in theory, you should have it up 100%. Obviously, it does not always work like that, but that's why we have an extra one, the slanted balance. because in my rotation, usually I open her with like either an airstrike or slanted, depending on where the enemy, what type, kind of grinding I'm doing. So you want to get that crit rate up early on, and then the blooming the blooming is a little bit later in the combo for me, so that way I can open and have 100 like, you know, throughout the entire rotation I'm doing. So yeah, that's why I have 2 of them. But if your blooming is early in your opener, you could replace this one with, you know, literally anything else you wanted to. I would probably say, you know, maybe actually we can look at that right now. What would I change it to? All DP plus 20, always good, especially if you're grinding Elvia or Zekia. I guess if you're PvPing, you would do human damage. I don't think you need all evasion or all accuracy unless you're PvPing. So if this is PvE, it's irrelevant. I guess any other thing is good enough. Crit rate damage, down, back is always good. But just in general, all DP plus 20 is probably another alternative. So, with that said, skills that are important. Airstrike. This isn't necessarily a huge damage skill. It's more of like a gap closer. So like getting from point A to B faster. But it's still not 100. And if we can get this to 100% crit rate, it's just slightly more damage. That's always nice. Pervasive Darkness is kind of a filler, but, you know, more damage is always good. Rabid Drake is at 60. Enforcement is actually a huge damage ability, by the way. If you've ever gotten hit by a Dark Knight's enforcement ability, you get knocked down or like floated, and then you get hit with enforcement. That like 100s to 0 most people, unless you're super geared. But that's a very strong ability, so if you can get that crit to 100, always good. And then, yeah, Wheel of Fortune is probably a big one as well. So everything else, you know, generally at 100, so that's why I do it. All right, so we talked about Reforge Crystals. I think those are important. And then we talked about skill add-ons. Here are my skill enhancements that I use. Nothing really changed. It doesn't matter if you're playing Awakening or Succession. These are the same thing I would use. Wrath of Adir is actually very nice, simply because it just generates recovery, especially if you're doing bosses. And I believe this is actually important too. Like, it's not a big deal, but you know how it says crit rate? If you do more damage, I think it's like overall better, but it's not really a huge thing. And then Unveiled is significantly better than Obsidian Blaze because it's like another gap closer on filler. And Balance Strike, I'm going to be honest, I don't really use it that much. I should add it to my rotation more, but it's one of those things where you have to hotbar, and then I'm just like a lot of other things. So anyway, even if you're playing Awakening, you have 100% on your Shattering, a Seed, and basically all the important ones. This is why you don't necessarily need crit weight in Awakening, just because all the important ones are at 100, so you're good. But anyway, what else are we talking about? Here are the other things that I'm using. Crystals, they're all the same as usual. The one thing I changed out, especially if you're not using any DR or anything, is I have a safe one now. So this is your go-to general PvE damage one. Nothing changed from the video I made a while ago. But this one has changed. Like, if you want to play more safe and you don't, you're not sacrificing too much damage, this is the one I use. So basically what you're getting rid of is the 4 Makalad damage. And you're basically putting in a little bit more defenses and, you know, all DR, evasion, monster damage, and everything. So yeah, this is what you're trading off. If you compare the stats from this one to this one, it's about minus 15 AP, which could be a lot actually, but it's significantly safer. But when in doubt, just use this one. Everyone uses it to go to. And as for artifacts and lightstones, basically the same thing as always, all out attack or species damage depending on where you're grinding. I think these are realistically the only 2 that matter, comma or demi-human, and you're good to go. So if you want to watch the full video on all of those, these are more in-depth, but for the sake of time and everything, this is what I use. So yeah, with that said, that's pretty much the update on my Dark Knight build. Is there anything else that I use different? Aside from the Reforge that's changed for Succession, crit rate up. That's the only thing. If you're playing Awakening, you could probably just put like all DR or something. Damage reduction instead of crit rate, it's fine as well. And add-ons, we talked about that. This is about it. If I were to change anything, it would be the crit rate to DR or DP plus 20, just to be safer. But yeah, your ultimate goal is to keep your crit rate up to 100% or as close to it as you can at all times. If you want to be like actually sure it's 100, this is PvE by the way, then you want to have 2 of them. But yeah, with that said, that's the update I have, and hopefully you guys are enjoying Succession. And realistically, if it were up to me, I actually still do play both of them. I think I've been learning Succession more. It's just across the board, it's better for PvP and PvP. And so I like Awakening more. But on the other hand, Succession is just better. So overall, I still play both of them. I could do bosses just fine, like, you know, your weekly morning bosses, all of that. I could do them both on both specs to this day, still fine and everything. But just wanted to do an update. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. With that said, thanks so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace!